everyone, welcome back. My name is John from Let's Talk.
And I'm Carmela from Salem, Cellar.
And today we are going to be counting down our top 3 winter horror films, each of us giving our own top 3 winter horror films. And you know what? There's one horror film that you guys won't be seeing on both of our lists, and there's a good reason for that, and that is 1980's The Shining. And we'll talk a little bit, Carmela. Why do we love The Shining?
The Shining is The Shining. It's just such an amazing film. It was kind of an obvious favorite of the winter horror film, so we didn't really want to go that route. But it's just Jack Nicholson is ridiculous. It's one of those movies that no matter how many times I watch it, I'm still creeped out. I still get chills, and I'm just completely invested in this like insane family or like these insane events for this family.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It feels like a little bit more than a horror film. It's very like an elevated horror film in the sense that like it's just very smart. It's just a good movie because Stanley Kubrick directed it, and you got Jack Nicholson in there just playing an absolute psychopath. Love seeing it.
Here's to 5 miserable months on the wagon.
And, you know, the horror element of being locked in a hotel for the whole winter, not being able to get away from your family, that's enough to drive anyone mad. And also, I don't know if you guys can see, but Carmela from Salem Cellar has those amazing pillows behind her, which
Yes.
I wish I had.
Christmas is coming up, so.
So, the way this will work is we'll go one apiece, and I think we might have the same. We have one of the same. We checked in with each other beforehand, but for the most part, we got some differences. We wanted to cover all of our grounds. So, do you want to go first, Carmela?
Yes. So one of my favorite winter films is 30 Days of Night, starring Josh Hartnett. Now, I remember this movie takes place in Alaska, and the entire time you're watching this, like, even though, like, it's so cold and you can tell everybody's freezing, like, you were just, like, sweating because these vampires are the real deal. Like, they made vampires scary again. Like, there's one scene with, like, the lead vampire, and there's like one of his victims is crying, and she's like, "Oh, please God," and he like looks up to the sky, and he looks down at her, and he's like,
No God.
and you just get chills. Like, his performance is ridiculous. So this movie is just phenomenal. Josh Hartnett is like next level in this film. He is invested, and you just love him, and you're rooting for him the entire time. I personally just love this film.
So, he's great in the movie, and the whole movie itself is, like you said, making vampires scary again. Because vampires, and even today, like they've kind of gone back down like the silly route, like with that TV show. What's it called? I can't forget.
Vampire Diaries.
No, Vampire Diaries. That's a dead. Oh my God, that's like in the line with like Twilight and those vampires.
That originals, maybe.
Oh my God, I have the movie too, the Taika Waititi movie. All right, so yeah, it was What We Do in the Shadows. Like they're just completely all comedy now, vampires.
Yeah, it started with like Twilight and the sparkly vampires, but they are terrifying in this one. They have like the long nails, they're vicious, you see the blood all over their face. Like, it's brutal.
Yeah, we don't get that anymore. At least not often. It's very rare where they make vampires scary again. And 30 Days a Night actually did capture that. And Alaska, I mean, it's a scary place as it is. No offense to anyone who lives in Alaska, but if there's a town there where it's 6 months of darkness and 6 months of daylight, first of all, it speaks to me, but that's a great choice. I love that choice, 30 Days a Night. And I have one that, my number 3, it's a little bit silly, but I always like this movie, Jack Frost from 1996.
Classic.
It's about a serial killer who's getting transported to jail, and then his body, when the van flips over, gets blended like with the snow. Some kind of oil makes him into a killer snowman who starts tormenting this town.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know if you've ever seen that or if you like that one or not, but it's ridiculous. It just, I mean, it came out 2 years before the Jack Frost that stars Michael Keaton, which I also really like. But this one's very different. This also is the first time I ever saw Shannon Elizabeth, even before American Pie. She's naked again. And she gets killed by a snowman who wants to have sex with her. That's how she ends up. Oh my God, it's just so ridiculous.
Oh, I must remember to send flowers.
But it's so fun. Like, I love these cheesy, over the top movies. You know, this and like Rubber. Like, those movies are just ridiculous.
I have not seen Rubber yet. I've been dying to see Rubber. I don't know how I haven't seen it, but I need to see it.
Oh, you'll appreciate it. You know, Killer Clowns is definitely like a better movie than like Jack Frost, but it's like in that similar, like, you know, it's not taking itself seriously kind of horror vein. You know, it's just cheesy and fun.
You know who loves Killer Clowns now?
Who?
Lucian, my son.
Does he really?
He has a Killer Clowns from Outer Space throw blanket on his bed. Like, like when he points at it, and I have to sing like like a clown, like circus music. Like, he loves Killer Clowns. It's crazy. I actually got him a Funko Pop for Christmas, a Killer Clowns.
Oh, that's so awesome. You're just turning your kids into horror kids. I know it's a little off topic, but, you know, Camilla has a daughter named Salem, and they took her to go see Krampus, and Lucian was a little bit scared, but then Salem, she looked like she was in heaven.
Literally, like, she loved Krampus. She was just like all smiles and about him. My son was in the corner crying, so I didn't like force him. Like, he was around Krampus for like a minute, and then I let him just go because I don't want to like traumatize him. But my daughter was legit like I was like, growl, and Krampus was growling, and she's like, I'm like, who are you? And she legit just turned 2. Like, she's a baby, but she's growling. Like, she's no joke.
You're molding her. You're molding her into exactly what you want her to be.
She does not look like me at all, but she is my twin personality-wise. Like, she's great.
That's perfect. That's what we need in this world. More Camellas. Like, I knew you liked horror, but then once I saw your channel and everything you do with horror, I'm like, no, she loves horror. Like,
it's life, honestly. Like Halloween does not, or that spooky season does not end with Halloween. It's legit. Like, every day I watch horror movies. It is my life.
Yeah, like, I love movies, and I love horror movies, but, like, I leave horror movies to go and dabble in other things. Like, you never leave horror. It's never not on.
Unless, like, Dumb and Dumber's on. Like, I watch Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers, but besides that, it's just sci-fi and horror for me.
You're a modern-day Scream queen. Because like, that obsession, it's awesome. I'm jealous. Like, you know, you've seen everything. I stay, like, I go a little bit deep, but, like, when it comes to horror, like, you know, I gotta go all the way into these other genres too. So it's like, I'm jealous. I wish I could just watch horror.
And Glenn behind me from Chucky's son.
Oh, Glenn or Glenda.
Oh yeah, right behind me. I like just see him right, like, hovering over me. Like.
That's so great. So what's your number 2 or your next one on your list?
So my number 2 is Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. Now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of people were expecting like Misery or something like that, but yes, that is my number 2. I'm a big fan of the Paranormal franchise. Like, I love these movies. I watch them back to back to back. Probably weekly. Like, I have a problem. So this one takes place around the winter, and it's cold and there's snow. And what I really loved about this film is that they tied in like the entire franchise. Like, this was the last movie, and you like throughout the franchise you see this, or you hear about this character Toby, and he's a demon, and that's not his real name, but you hear about him the entire franchise now and then. And at the very end of this movie, Toby is resurrected, and you see that Toby is a beast, and we're all done. The life as we know it is over. I just really just love this film. Like, this young girl, she's adopted. She finds out that she's like, her family's like Amish and lives in the middle of nowhere, and they want to meet her. So she goes there, she's like, her friends are filming it, and she's there, and she realizes like some strange things are happening. Like, stuff is not adding up. She's hearing stories about her mother, and she's like, this is not adding up. This doesn't make sense. And you just find out that they are basically, like, it's a spoiler. So if you haven't seen this movie, cover your ears really quick. But they're basically keeping this character, this demon, down. So they're not like, so he's not resurrected to take over humanity and kill us all. And At the end, he's resurrected, and that to me, it was just so badass, and it just made me love this movie. So yes, this is my second favorite winter horror movie.
Well, I also really like Next to Kin, and just like you, I also really like the Paranormal Activity franchise. I still think, what was it, number 3, when they kind of go back in time with the first 2 characters? I think that was my favorite one. But I've always liked them all, and even that one in the middle, I know a lot of people don't like Ghost Dimension or something like that. I can't remember. So did I! I also really like that one. I know people were like, oh, you see too much, but I'm like, it's something different for the franchise. And actually, same thing kind of with Next to Kin. I also thought, how many times are we going to do the same thing? At least they're trying stuff.
It's funny that you said that the third film is actually my favorite in the franchise as well. It's the one with the mom and the sisters are younger.
Yeah.
I love a prequel. I love a good prequel. And this one really, gets down and deep. It is messed up on every level. Everybody's fate in this film. And I think this is why it's it was just done so well. It's scary, too.
It is. That's a great choice. So then my number 2, I'm sure you love this movie as well, is Gremlins from 1984, I believe, directed by Joe Dante and produced by Steven Spielberg. And I always love this movie. It's got that, around Christmas time. I just rewatched this one last night. But just because every year I have to rewatch this around Christmas. It's got that cold weather feel. The whole town is covered in snow the entire time. In the beginning of the movie, his Volkswagen Beetle, it's got snow on it, which is, he doesn't even brush it off to, go to the bank and everything. I'm like, no wonder it doesn't start. You don't even take care of the thing. but but then, he gets a mogwai from his dad and, doesn't follow the rules. You can't get them wet. You can't feed them after midnight. No bright lights. The same rules for me, essentially. And they end up making a bunch of gremlins just going around destroying the city, the whole town. And man, I just love this movie.
I have a question. Do you prefer the first Gremlins or the second?
So,
if you had to pick one.
I still would pick the first one, but I also really do love Gremlins too. I love that one. People don't like that one. You know that?
That's my favorite one. I love the second one. I love it.
I just rewatched the second one last year. I love the second one too. I love all the meta stuff in there. I love that Hulk Hogan's watching the movie in the movie, and then he gets mad. Then they turn it off because they're in the booth of freaking Gremlins.
When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
You're right. Now Gremlins 2 is also a great movie.
The Gremlins, that's a good choice. I didn't even think about that. That's a really good choice for winter horror.
Yeah, but I was trying to also think a little bit of Christmas horror movies, because we were originally going to do that, but there's not too many. There's there's Krampus, and then there's 3 Black Christmases. There's the original, the remake, and then another remake.
One of mine. If we did the Christmas one, I was going to go the Prometheus route, because technically all this place takes place during Christmas. If you remember, Idris Elba's character is putting up a Christmas tree and decorating it.
That is a good point. I didn't even think about that. I always forget that that's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, that would have been one of mine, but I couldn't think of Christmas horror movies that were really that I just love besides Prometheus and Krampus and
Yeah, there's just a bunch of good ones. I watched one this week actually called Christmas Evil from 1980. It's a slasher movie. And that was, I really enjoyed that, but, it's one that, it's not, a special movie. When you talk about winter horror movies, there's certain movies, Gremlins, you could argue is, just a really good movie. It's not the greatest movie, but it's a really fun, Christmas comedy movie. And then you got movies like The Shining. That's just a great movie, even though it just happens to be a winter horror movie.
Misery is another one.
I love Misery.
It's such a great movie. It takes place around the winter, in the, during the winter, snow and stuff. That's a great one.
Yeah, you can't escape her.
No.
She'll freaking cripple your legs.
That was so brutal. That was so bad.
It's under 1 full second when we see that leg break in that movie. It's not even a full second, and it's still oh my god, I didn't know a leg could break like that.
It feels like 10 minutes, you're watching that scene. It just feels so long.
Oh, it's terrible. I cannot take that.
No.
And then I think we both have the same number 1 that we wanted to talk about, right?
We do.
And that is The Thing from 1982. directed by John Carpenter, the same guy who directed Halloween. This one takes place basically at a base. Is it the South Pole, if I'm correct?
I think it's the South Pole, yeah.
Yeah, in Antarctica, and they're studying, and then unfortunately, a thing gets loose. It's basically an alien creature, and it's able to replicate anything, and so everyone is unsure of who is the thing, and we get from that point basically a mystery movie, paranoia movie about who the thing is. But Carmela, what do you think of this movie? I know obviously the same once you must love it, but what do you think of it? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a big Kurt Russell fan, like huge Kurt Russell fan, for obvious reasons. He's amazing, but I just love this movie. It is one of those films like, without like the only scene in this film that I can't watch is the husky scene. That is hard for me, not just because it's gross, just because it's animals getting hurt. I know it's not real, but still it's hard to watch. But this movie is just one of those films, like, on top of it being so cold, which makes you miserable, you don't know who is an actual person or who is this creature. Like, it's just like you're looking at every single person in the room and you're like, are you a monster? Are you an alien? Like, what are you? And in the remake, they find a way to tell, like, who's, if it's like, if you have like a filling in your teeth or if you have a piercing, because I don't know if you remember the remake, because the alien cannot recreate like metal, like any odd, so anything that's not supposed to be in us, they can't recreate it. So I don't remember in the original thing if they found a way to like pinpoint who was who, but that just makes you so paranoid. And I don't know, there's just something about this film, like the scene where he's trying to like bring the guy back to life.
Oh my god.
And his stomach opens up.
Clear!
Oh, that's so brutal. It's ridiculous.
It is like, it is crazy. Those effects, I just watch it. I'm like, this is no CGI, like, crap, where it just looks like, this just looks like it's just the real ordeal. Like, it's the real deal.
That's what always gets me, is that those effects are done physically, and like the one like when the head like detaches and it's got like the green stringy things coming off of it, and I'm like, how did they actually do that? It always blows my mind because it's practical. You can see all the lights reflecting off, and it looks like it's a real thing. It's that well done. I love that scene. That is a very petrifying scene. I just could never, and the fact that like they're stuck there and they can't escape, so this thing is just running through this entire, and they have to know, like, no matter what, and they come to that conclusion, like, spoilers for the end, but only Kurt Russell and Keith David make it, and even they are skeptical of each other at that point when there's only two of them left.
I actually met Keith David a few months back. He was just amazing. He was like so cool. Like, I was sitting next to him, we were taking a selfie, a picture, and I'm like, I feel like we're friends just hanging out. And he looks at me and he's like, aren't we? I'm like, dude, you just killed me. Like, I just like died inside. But did you know that because you don't see Keith David die in this film, that he's supposed to be the first African American in a horror movie to survive. Like, the first ever.
Is that for real? I never thought. I never thought about that, but that makes sense. Like, you always hear those jokes about black people being killed in like being the first one killed off in movies, and they never survive. But yeah, and in my opinion, at the very end of this movie, I think that Keith David is the thing, because you can't see his breath, and you can see Kurt Russell's breath. Now, I've brought this up to people, and they've shot it down. They've say like, well, he's closer to the heat, and that could be why. But I don't know. It just feels like it's very noticeable. So that was always my opinion. But they don't ever leave you with a definite answer. It's really what you believe.
That's a really good point. Now I'm going to rewatch it and pay attention to that, because I never really paid attention to that. Like, to see like that he, like, you couldn't see his breath. But that's a really good point. You might be onto something.
That was always my theory, but again, if you go research the internet, everyone's got different theories, and because John Carpenter also just won't tell us like who the thing is. He's never going to tell us, so it's really up to us. It's like at the end of Inception, like, Christopher Nolan's never going to tell us if the thing falls over or not. You got to decide for yourself and stick to it, or just believe what you want at that point.
Yeah, that's. I'm gonna rewatch it now. I'm gonna like really pay attention. I never really thought of Keith David being the thing. Like I just thought both of these men were human and they were just going to just eventually die or whatever. But you have a good point. Now I'm gonna rewatch it.
See, the thing
What do you think about the prequel?
I actually like the prequel. The only thing that kind of takes me out of the prequel is more CGI now instead of practical effects. But I actually think it's pretty well made. I enjoy it, and I also like that it pretty much does what all the best prequels do and leads right into the original, which I like because they did that with one of the Final Destinations where it ended and it started right at the end of that one was the beginning of the first one.
The plane scene. That plane scene always gets me.
Oh my god, it's petrifying. Especially living on Long Island, and like that was based on the T-800 flight that, crashed over here, and by the beach we live by, they have a memorial to him. It's crazy.
That's why I'm so afraid of flying and planes because of Final Destination.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm petrified of flying. I hate it. I hate it so much. You're the only, and my wife, her sister always says like, you guys are the same when it comes to flying. You guys, I hate it so much.
My anxiety, literally, I went on, last flight I went on with her, we were going on a cruise to Cuba. I don't know if you remember. And I literally took a Xanax and I was drinking wine the entire flight and I was still crying and shaking. Like, it did nothing. It did not calm me at all. I probably shouldn't have mixed the two. Don't mix the two. But it definitely did not help my fear. I was shaking and horrified. It was horrifying.
No, I don't blame you. I'd be horrified too. I get the same exact way. The last flight I went on, I haven't gone on a flight in 6 years. I took a Xanax also, and I felt pretty good. And then the first jolt in the air knocked me completely sober, and I just sat there shaking the entire time.
And you have a flight coming up, right?
Yeah, we're going away in February, so I'm not looking. What happens to me is I'll get anxiety the whole week before. That's why I really won't travel, is because I can't deal with the anxiety leading up to traveling. Once it's over with and I'm there, I'm fine, but that week before is going to be terrible for me.
I'm sorry, it'll be worth it. Don't worry. It's a short flight.
Yeah, it'll be worth it once we're there. It's just those sleepless nights are going to be awful.
That fear is crippling. It's just...
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Final Destination.
Yeah, I know. Well, that and being afraid to drive behind a log truck really petrified a whole generation of people.
Yes, I will never. Even a truck that has anything hanging from it or anything attached, I will just move into the next lane because I'm this is just not going to end well for anybody.
No. I just one bad bump and they're not tied down right. That's it. I'm not being involved in that. I see one of those car carriers. I'm not going near that.
Yeah, no.
Not after Bad Boys 2. Never.
Seen Bad Boys 2.
The guys, well, they're evil. They're just dropping them off on the highway. But before we end this video, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. I have. It's actually streaming for free on Tubi right now. I have not seen this film, but I plan on watching it this season. It is Dead Snow. Okay. So if you haven't seen it, what this movie is about is that a group of friends, they're staying at a cabin. It's snowing. I guess they plan on going skiing and snowboarding, whatever. And they find, it's kind of like Evil Dead. They find this treasure or this book, and it resurrects zombie Nazis. I guess the Nazis were doing experiments, so they come back to life and they're trying to kill them or get their treasures or whatever. I can be completely wrong with the treasure or the book. I haven't seen it, but that's what I got from the trailer. And it just looks ridiculous. It looks like it's so much fun. I've been hearing so many great things about it. And there's 4 or 5 movies. There's a bunch of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a ton. So if you haven't seen Dead Snow, I'm going to watch it this season. I think you should watch it too.
Well, I love Tubi. I just found Tubi recently. I started watching movies on it. I thought, a streaming service with ads. I don't know. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
And they got everything. It's crazy. You just got to deal with ads in the beginning and a couple throughout the movie, but really not bad at all. Tubi.
I've used, besides Disney Plus because of the kids, Tubi's my favorite app. I literally will watch it all day long. I love it.
No, yeah, they are fantastic. And actually, I don't really have an honorable mention. Mine was Misery, but I wanted to ask you, have you ever seen the movie Frozen, the one where they're stuck up on the thing?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I think that's the better Frozen. But
you've seen it, right?
yeah, that movie, that actually was a fear of mine when I was a kid. That's even though I never went skiing, but I was always afraid of like what would happen if you got stuck up there.
It's the wolves. The wolves are horrifying. To
Yeah.
think of this scene where they're just basically eating these people are, like alive. Remember the scene when the guy, he falls, he breaks his leg. I'm sorry, spoiler.
Yeah.
And he's like telling the guy, like, don't let her watch.
Don't you fucking let her look!
Being eaten alive. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's the most petrifying scene in the movie, and that's like because in the beginning you're like, well, why don't they just jump? And you're like, yeah, they might get hurt, but it should be at least they'll be able to get out of there. And they're like, well, no, they're not getting out of there.
No, the wolves are there, and they're vicious, and they're hungry, and they're looking for food because it's the middle of winter and everything's hibernating, and they are ready. They are out for blood, and yeah, it's a hard watch. I love it, and it's a great movie, but I don't want to watch it again.
No, me neither. That's a very depressing movie throughout the entire thing. It's really, and it's not even really redeeming. I just always had that kind of fear, so it was strange when I found out that they made that movie like that about like basically being stuck on a ski lift, and then when I saw it, I was like, well, it didn't really help my fears. Actually, it made it worse.
It's terrible.
But, all right, that's going to do it here for us on this episode. So I'm John from Let's Talk.
And I'm Carmela from Salem, Cellar.
And we'll be seeing you around.
We'll be right back.